going back in history and talking about the ancient Egyptian history. Dr. Bassam El Shamaa, Egyptologist and prominent historian, is going to have having a lot of surprises, historical surprises for us today. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning to you, my dear.
Good morning, Mr. Bassam El Shamaa, and of course, this episode or this segment holds the title of Did You Know?
Right.
So what would you like to start off with?
Well, things that we know about or we think we know about. Things like, for example, Herodotus. Things like the Rosetta Stela. Things like the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Things like the Sphinx. Things that we thought we knew about a lot and we knew everything about. Then you wake up one day, you make lots of studies, you read here, you read there, and you thought to yourself one day, we didn't know but that small of a percentage about things like that. For example, if I told you Egypt is the gift of the Nile, what would directly come to your head? Herodotus. Because Herodotus was the man who was famous for that sentence, at least here in Egypt. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. Then you get surprised by knowing he was not. Once again, he was not.
He was not the person who said Egypt is the gift of the Nile.
He actually was not the first person who.
Right.
He said it, he wrote it. He wrote it in a way. In his second book, he wrote 9 books. Second book was about Egypt. And again, when you describe a guy like Herodotus, take what you want to take from him, leave what you want to leave from him. I would leave lots of things from Herodotus. I will take some. But why are we calling him a historian? I mean, what is a historian? What is an Egyptologist who describes temples, study the tombs, probably decipher some of the texts? But he didn't do that. He learned from people, he heard from people, and then he wrote. So you can describe him, if you ask me, as a tourist. And that is not something bad, that's something good. But he's not a historian. He's not to the level of a person who studied the pyramid, how it was built, because when he described things like that, most of the time he described it with exaggeration, number one. Number two, with great deal of mistakes. So let's go back to if Herodotus was not the first person who said Egypt is the gift of Nile. Who did? And again, who did Herodotus take from? Well, there is a guy that I would like to introduce you to now called Hikatea, the Maltese, from Malta. So he's called Hikatea al-Malti in Arabic. And this man is well known in Selim Hassan, the famous encyclopedia of Selim Hassan, Ancient Egypt, and which I recommend everybody to read it. And also, he was mentioned by some other historians. But Hikatea al-Malti, or the Hikatea from Malta, was an amazing visitor to Egypt, and he was the first who said that, and it was mentioned by Selim Hassan that he was the first to say it, and then Herodotus took, and Herodotus said that he took some stuff from Hikatea, and he did not actually said no about that. Go back from Herodotus, let's go a little bit further and talk about Champollion. Champollion,
the Rosetta Stone.
The Rosetta Stone.
Right.
First of all, why are we calling it a stone? A stone is a block that you cut or hewn off the cliffs or hewn off a quarry, right? You go to the quarry, you cut a stone, you take it, it's a stone. You find a pebble or something on the floor and you pick it up, it's a stone, right? Carve on it, it's a stela. It's a lawha in Arabic because you carved on it.
So it was originally a stone?
And
then after it was carved, it's a stela.
Exactly. So if I am referring to it as today, as the pictures, then, which is now in the British Museum, asking it to come back, then we refer to it as the Rosetta Stela and not the Rosetta Stone. But if I told you, did you know that the Rosetta Stone is 600 million years of age? What would you say? 600 million years of age. At some point, is going to tell me.
So it's not from the ancient Egyptian times?
As a stone, it was formed
before.
In natural formation.
Before the history of the ancient Egyptians.
Before, way before. In the days of the formation of the mountain, the formation of the stone, the formation from where it came from. It's still a stone, not carved. 600 million years of age. That study was made by the people of the British Museum. But 600 million years is what stone is it? Go to the Egyptian Museum, here you see a replica, a very lousy one, all right, a replica, and the replica was with a card on the side for years. It was written basalt, made out of basalt stone. So some years ago I was here and we were on TV here, and I met the gentleman who was the boss of the Egyptian Museum at that time, and I ran after air, and after him in the corridor I said, sir, doctor, this is what? And I said, do you remember those days when they were moving the Ramesses statue, the colossal statue, from the square of Ramesses to the Midan al-Rimaya square? Those days. So I ran after him and I said, it's not basalt, sir. The Rosetta Stela is not made out of basalt stone. It's granodiorite. Granodiorite. Gray with pink veins. And I saw it with my own eyes in the British Museum more than once, before and after they cleaned it. Because they cleaned it, and because it was always placed on the side like a book, and then they decided to put it as it used to be in the old days when it was on its base. And we knew it was like that because the base was ready. And the back was a little bit rough. So we knew that in the temple originally, that stela was placed with its back towards something, towards a wall, or towards a pylon. Why? Because the back is rough. If that stela was left like that on its own in the middle of the temple, then the people who made it, they would make it smooth here. They wouldn't let it rough to be seen by everybody from all sides. So that rough part on the back of this part that you see is what you see or what you saw as well in the temple in the ancient times. You don't see the back, but the back is rough, which means it was not seen in the temple. Interesting, because that the design and the work on the stela gives you how it was placed originally in the temple. Another thing we found in the Rosetta, when you study the Rosetta, that it had a journey. The decree, the bayan, the decree, which is actually carved on the trilingual, could be people saying it is in hieroglyphs, it's in demotic, which is a very cursive way of writing of hieroglyphs, ancient Egyptian as well, and Greek. The Greek, which is the bottom one, the Greek was in Greek capitals. And the hieroglyphs, and the demotic, which is the, if you like, the most cursive way of writing hieroglyphs. So there are 3 scripts, 2 languages. How about that? Because people say there are 3 languages. No, there are 3 scripts, 3 paragraphs, right? But 2 languages, Egyptian and Greek. Because hieroglyphs and demotic is Egyptian. And Greek. Right? Interestingly enough, when they were studying in the British Museum, they found traces of light red pigment. Which means that what we see today, see, this is interesting here, is not what it used to look like in the temple. Because probably with that light red pigment, that gives you an idea that those letters were kind of filled with red. It could be like the red shining text from the granodiorite. Very, very interesting. We didn't know that. For years, we didn't know that. And also, if you would have looked at it in the British Museum before they cleaned it, you would find it very black, shining, right? Sparkling black like that. And the signs, like the hieroglyphs and the demotic and the Greek, are in white. Why? Because that white was white chalk. They brought white chalk powder and they put it so the white chalk would rest inside the signs, the carved signs. And by this, the signs can be read easily. They used to do that. When you want to read a text and the text is so small and it's on a dark background, what do? You would bring chalk, white chalk, and you would put it. The white chalk will rest will be sunk inside the sign, and the signs will be bright for you to read.
But then it will fade with time.
Of course. Of course. That didn't happen a great deal, but of course.
Maybe they could have used dye or something.
They used chalk. That's what they thought. And probably the dyes, they would be in trouble using that, because dyes can be filled with, I don't know, chemicals and so on. If it was chemical dyes, if natural dyes, that's something. And then they would cover the whole Rosetta. That sparkling black was the, what was the reason for that? Why, when we used to look at it, it used to be like so shiny, as if you just like made it with some, I don't know, polish or something. Well, they did. And they covered it in wax to protect it. That is in the old days. Now all that is cleaned. All that is clean now. And that wax was a certain type of wax called carnauba wax. And the carnauba wax was for protection. When they decided to clean it and they decided to put it, then we saw it was gray, not black. We knew it was granodiorite, not basalt. And we knew it was pink veins in the natural stone, and not it was a black basalt stone. When I ran after the boss of the museum and I told him, now it's all different, it's not basalt, the British Museum has found out and has found out, he said, oh, we didn't receive anything from the British Museum. I left him on. We didn't receive anything from the British Museum.
So they used that type of wax to protect the objects.
The stela. And the interesting thing is, Champollion himself, we have Champollion as a picture. Our beautiful friend in your beautiful control room has found it. And Champollion is a very controversial guy. He died young. He died 42 or something years of age. He was a nervous guy. He was an intense guy. He was a genius. He made his mistakes. He made his major mistakes.
But did Champollion use the Greek language to translate?
He studied Arabic. He studied Sanskrit. He studied languages from India. He studied Greek. Those people, he was a genius. When he was only 19, he was given his high degree. And who wrote his doctorate degree? Who wrote the papers which facilitated him being a doctor? But Napoleon. Napoleon himself. When you are 19 years of age, tell me about youth. Tell me about how you support youth as the people who are running a nation, by believing in a guy who's 19 years of age and he studied all those languages. So no surprise, the guy died, he deciphered the Rosetta Stela, he died 42 years of age, he changed the world. And by the way, his tomb in France has got an obelisk right over it. Not an ancient obelisk, but a French-made obelisk. The guy was very into it. I'll tell you about Champollion. Did something very interesting. When he was working very hard and he was very tired, and he's dying to get that decipherment. He did not work from the Rosetta. Did you know that Champollion deciphered hieroglyphs without looking at the Rosetta Stela? Because the Rosetta Stela was in England.
So how did he do it?
By copies. Copies were made and sent when it was found, because the Rosetta Stela was found in Rosetta, in Rashid, in a citadel, in a fortress called the Fortress of Qaid Bey. Because everybody knows the Fortress of Qaid Bey in Alexandria.
In Alexandria, yes.
Right? Did anybody know that there was a huge, amazing construction in Rosetta, in Rashid, called the Citadel of Qaid Bey, where the French were destroying and demolishing some parts because they were reorganizing the citadel for their wars and for their fightings and so on. And the guy who was in the head of the French guy, the French soldier, who was the head of the demolition party in the army, was Bouchard, and under his control the stone was found, and good job that it was Bouchard who was there, because they knew that this is something important. Somebody said it was okay for that stela to be in the hands of the French first, because the French knew about culture. Because maybe if it was in the hands of I don't know who, he would be like throwing it somewhere.
It wouldn't have been noticed, but
something like that.
We found, now that we have found out how Champollion have found out all those discoveries, we're very curious to know, how do you come up with all these things, interesting things? I mean, how do you notice them?
Well, first of all, I read a great deal of the Rosetta Stone stela from the British Museum work. And the British Museum, I like the British School of Egyptology. It's straightforward, it's one sentence with a big hit, it's surprising. Amazingly enough, they are very flexible, because some people will tell you that the British schools of Egyptology will be rigid, and I said no. I think our school is more rigid. Our school of Egyptology here with our professors, which of course I respect all of them, it's more rigid, more solid, more I'm not going to change. And oh no, put him aside. We are with the things which was said 200 years ago. So it's the British were more flexible, which is surprising. But
open to thinking.
But they are. Champollion, after all a great deal of work, he's dying of work. He's literally dying of work. He found it. I've done it. So he ran to his brother in the institute, to the room of his brother in the institute, and he shouted his famous words. So he said, I've done it. That was the sentence. Like Eureka, I don't know, I've found it or whatever, was the scream of Archimedes or whatever. That was another very famous scream in history.
But would you tell us more about the process that Champollion followed in order to translate the hieroglyphic letters into the Latin letters?
From the Greek, you are dealing with Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphic, and the key is Coptic.
The Coptic language?
The Coptic script.
Right.
That is the key, and I'm saying it's still the key.
So he was translating it.
If the Coptic, why Coptic is the most, if you like, important link between past and in languages, between past and modern. Because Coptic had ancient scripts living in it. What is Coptic? What is the Coptic script? Greek plus number of signs, some people said 7, some people said 8 and more, from Demotic. So it took from Demotic and it put inside Greek equals the result Coptic. So Coptic bore Greek in it
and Demotic?
And Demotic in it, and Demotic is more important than hieroglyph. Hieroglyph is the language of the kings. The princess, I don't know who. Queen, I don't know what. So thank you very much, is great. Nobleman, I don't know what. The temple, carving on the tombs, carving on the temples, papyri of royalty, that's hieroglyphs. But this man behind the camera, myself walking down the street, going to my job every day, daily life business is demotic. Populace. That's from where the word demos, democracy. Here you go. The populace, the population, the language or the script of the people. What you write.
You mean the slang language?
If you, more or less, it is like naskhan riqa in Arabic. It's like the very articulate way of drawing an owl, which is letter M in hieroglyphs, or you write very quickly an owl. Or you draw an owl very quickly, very cursive.
So Demotic was used only during the ancient Egyptian times,
and
not before that.
Then lived, yes, but then it lived with some letters and some signs in Coptic.
Right.
The Coptic, if you like, borrowed some of it. Why? Because those letters in Demotic were not in Greek. The Greek script lacked some of the letters in Egypt. This business of je tiens mon affaire, that is the scream, the sentence, which I think changed the world of Egyptology. Je tiens mon affaire, that's what Champollion screamed to his brother. I've done it. I found it. He said, je tiens mon affaire in French, and then he fainted for 5 days. Deadly faint for 5 days.
Working
the British
so
Museum
hard.
is telling us in the way he was so tired, he was so excited, and because he couldn't believe himself reaching that, because remember, Champollion was not the only one who tried that. Silver de
A lot
Sati.
of trials before him.
Names like pyramids, if you like.
So
Silver
did he
de Sati.
continue on the works of the people before him?
Exactly. And if you want to be more accurate than this as well, you can say he gathered the fruit basket.
Right.
He had the fruit basket on his table, and then he chose from the apples and the oranges.
You were talking about the people.
Silver Desassi. And Silver Desassi actually taught him. And he learned Arabic. We have Akirblad. Whoa. Thomas Young. What an amazing man. And by the way, Thomas Young was the competitor in history of translation and transliteration and decipherment with Champollion. And when the Rosetta Stela went to Paris in the 1970s, can you imagine this? The two enemies now are in peace. So the French asked the British to send them the Rosetta Stela to visit Paris. And they agreed. Why are the British Museum, they are not agreeing to send it to us? You send it to your enemy or ex-enemy. Right. So they put the Rosetta in Paris for the people to come and visit it. And right beside the Rosetta Stela, the two huge pictures of Champollion and Thomas Young. The people left the show, the exhibition, not discussing the Rosetta Stela, but discussing whose picture is bigger than the other. Is it Thomas Young? Because that's the British. Or is it Champollion? Oh, the French. So the people left the exhibition thinking, oh, our picture is bigger than yours. That's very human. That's competition of humans. But for us, it was a good competition. It was a beneficiary competition because everybody benefited from that competition.
But most probably those were the public, but the historians...
Yeah. Oh, the historians were out of this world.
They were debating about something else.
Everybody was rejoicing, of course. Because in 1822, that is the change, some people say the birth of...
The Rosetta Stela?
The birth of Egyptology. The birth of Egyptology as we know it. But remember, An-Nabati Abi Bakr, known by Ibn Wahshiyah, was an Arab from Al-Anbat, from Jordan, who attempted to decipher hundreds of years before Champollion. So the Arabs tried as well. Okay, they didn't decipher the whole thing, but they tried as well. And there are more surprises in history to come in other episodes, inshallah.
You promised that you tell us the rest of the story next week.
Inshallah.
Right, Dr. Bassam El Shamaa, prominent Egyptologist and historian, many thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, we now go for the short break and we'll be back.